Tommy, it's Gary.
Oh, nice to hear from you, Gary.
I take it you heard about the little league that I run?
I have actually. The whole season gone. First time in North American major sports history.
Yep. I'm gonna try it again in, another 8 years or so. I love it when people can't watch something.
With respect, Mr. Bettman, how's the Chell gonna make any money while this lockout...
What? The what?
The Chell?
What in God's name is the Chell?
It's a nickname for the NHL. It's slang.
Never say that again.
Okay.
Hockey slang is gross
Yes,
enough
sir.
as it is. I don't need that spilling
Won't
into my
happen again.
dailies.
I was just asking how the league was gonna make money if there's nobody watching it. It just doesn't sound like good marketing.
Sound like what?
Good marketing?
I don't know what that is. Is that French?
Sure.
Look, who cares who watches it? It's a business and it needs to make money.
So I gather. We're doing okay though. Our playoffs are starting in a few weeks here. We don't get many viewers on TV or in the arena.
That's awesome.
Well, we want more viewers. Maybe the NHL viewers will get their fix with us. Who knows? That's why this dump of a league we did about the most attention-grabbing, vapid thing we could. We gave all of our teams really, really stupid names and placed them in towns with equally stupid names. And it's kind of worked.
What are they called? Toby, what are they called?
What do you get when you pit two franchises in a low-tier hockey league against each other, completely joined at the hip for the better part of a decade, but their teams are situated in the middle of absolute nowhere? You get nothing, because maybe 30 people on the planet know the teams, at least at the time. In 2013, LOHL historian Pilchard Echterhoff referred to the bitter rivalry between these two desolate teams as the Nowhere Bowl. If there was ever anything, he wrote, that epitomized the phrase full of sound and fury and signifying nothing, it was the rivalry between the Jokers and the Ferris wheels. These teams' history together started in the playoffs of 1998, back when the Sober Island Ferris wheels franchise was the Saudi Daisy champions. They had the honor of losing to the Witless Bay Wonder Women in the finals. San Luis Dohaha didn't make it out of the first round. The next year, it was San Luis' turn to lose to the Witless Bay Wonder Women in the finals, while Saudi Daisy didn't make it out of the first round. In 99-2000, both teams occupied the lowest two spots in the league, granting them first and second overall picks in the 2000 LOHL Ingress Draft. With these two picks, the Jokers and the Ferris wheels would solidify their status as Siamese twins for years to come. Going first overall to the Jokers was the super big, super strong, super talented Balter Scaglione. And going second overall to the Ferris wheels was the elite playmaker, Sticky Toledo. Both players were surefire franchise talents, no question. They had the third and fifth most points through their first 3 seasons in all LOHL history, behind only the legendary South Rope Grummer, Bindlorg O'Hanlon, and the Sapient Trash Can. Their respective teams didn't get out of the basement instantly, once again occupying neighboring standing spots in 2001, but since then, they'd landed right next to each other in the standings every year, but neither had gone on a deep playoff run. It's a shame that neither of them did because it was the rivalry of the LOHL. 2005 was the first year they would face each other in the playoffs. Finally, their story would have some stakes involved. And not only were these teams similar in history, but they were also very similar in makeup in 2005. Let's start with the Jokers. Run by the somewhat impulsive Carlisle Gilchrist as GM, the Jokers had built a defensively sound team around Balter Scaglione. A bit too defensive. I'd be remiss to start the summary with anyone other than Aloysius Walls. Perhaps the one lasting image from eyes being turned towards the league in 2005 was his iconic cross-marked blocker, known as the X Factor. Fittingly, he won the Wall Trophy for the best goalie in the league that year, the first of a new contract for him. Moving out from the net, the Jokers touted long-tenured homegrown Akil Lemoine on the back end, a middle-pair stay-at-home defenseman who never spent less than 40 minutes a day trimming his mustache. Another stay-at-home defenseman was Inky Iverstead. As a psychological tactic, he never washed his gear so that the opponent would find his stench so repulsive they'd back off. He didn't need to do that, he was a great defensive defenseman anyway. His teammates called him Stinky Inky. Everyone else called him the Bilge. He was also a youth pastor, and holds the Quebec record for most games played by a defenseman in seminary. Flanking Scraglione on the top line was Captain Michel-Marie Morin. Morin is him. Probably the most anachronistic player ever in the game. He was drinking beer and smoking cigs in the locker room between periods. By all accounts, he was ultra cool. Like that 70s kind of cool where you really wish you were him. But only he is him. His wingmate was not cool. Swiss-born Florian Lehmann was an utter dweeb on the ice, spending a third of his time taunting, another third scoring, and the last third taunting after scoring. But he was a legit top 6 talent. The club gelled well with head coach Troy Dorian, affectionately known as Trogdor, for his Tortorella-esque ability to stand up for his team at the drop of a pin. The Jokers had a little bit of everything. Effective two-way players with scoring touches like Matt Wyrazub, Yaroslav Noimnot, and 21-year-old prospect Chundler Thundermere, and a solid array of offensive and defensive defensemen. But the Ferris wheels were equally well-rounded. Beyond Sticky Toledo, they boasted an incredibly responsible top 6. The injury-prone but great Bertulis Vilcinch and Germain Chevalier were two very good two-way playmakers, though Vilcinch was such a hypochondriac that sometimes he wouldn't show up to play, and Chevalier was a relatively recent signee. He had to be coerced away from the Architecture College of Buffalo, since his dream was to build an amusement park called Liechtenstein World. He was only able to be signed after convincing him that Liechtenstein isn't real. Adding to this top 6 jack-of-all-trades list was He Who Windermere. Yes, the same one that Bill Clinton once called a fat elf, and Alexei Hininen. The idea behind having so many responsible two-way forwards in the top 6 was that Sticky Toledo was so bad on defense that they needed 5 other players to cover it up. But hey, they were a good team, so it worked. Lastly, is Captain Doug Slayer. The heart and soul of the Ferris wheel's blue line. He was a mean son of a gun who could hurt you with his stick as well as his comments in the media. His longtime defense partner, Sammy Pelha, had seen his talent crater as he aged, so Slayer would be put out there with him, or any other defensive liability, to cover up their massive iniquities. He did not have an easy job, but he was great at it. Now, you may be thinking, how on earth did these cerebral, rational players get talked into playing in a place as remote as Sober Island? The answer is quite simple. General Manager Albert Barnacle is a true blue businessman. One of the most persuasive men to ever live. He was the man responsible for branding the Sober Island franchise as the Ferris wheels, after the Sober Island Ferris wheel, once they moved there, simply because he walked up to the LOHL offices in Bermuda and talked them into it. No vote, no debate. He just sold them the goods. And it is with this charisma that he talked all these players into signing a contract on an island that's almost as remote as Pluto. Didn't mean he never had to make a tough decision, though. The Wheels had 2 rising stars in net. Charles Cheese and Gunter Saldovs were 21 and 22, and as good as they were young. They split starts during the season, but after a very, very long deliberation, which ended in a coin flip, Gunter Saldovs would be starting Game 1. Another hard decision was that 2 weeks into the season, Barnacle had to fire longtime coach Olby Froglum for repeatedly not flushing. In his stead was hired Tiffany Hopkins, who, due to his lighter voice, his affinity for lace clothing, and his propensity for making cookies, many believe was actually a sweet old lady in disguise. The shakeup obviously didn't affect Sober Island that much as they rolled into 5th place and a showdown with the Jokers, and the chance to advance to the second round of the playoffs for the first time in 7 years. They had a defensively responsible forward group, a deep blue line, and the best tandem in the league, which ensured that they allowed the second fewest goals against all season. Both teams were great at defense, as is apparent. Little did we know just how defensive this series would be. As you might expect from a league like the LOHL, the announcer for the game never showed up. Fortunately, some other announcer, purely by chance, found his way into the booth.
Right, g'day everyone. My name's Cody Earnshaw, and I thought this was Australian rules, but judging from the white surface of the pitch and the non-grass nature of it, I'm inclined to believe that I have not arrived at my intended destination.
The Ferris wheels got the jump on the Jokers in the first 5 minutes, catching them napping a good half dozen times, and they got burned for it.
This will be the last time I say this, but for Pete's sake, how are people supposed to score? Oh, here's Vilsic behind the defense, the keeper to beat. He shoots it in, and that's a goal. 1-0 Ferris wheels. Brilliant try there from Botulis Vilsic. That can't be a real name. That's just Henrik Zetterberg. I know who that is. I don't blame him. It's very small and dinky. Puck is there. Somewhere, and Price. Chase Price scores. No? Is that not a goal? He hit the red part. It seems like that's the part that you need to hit the most, right? No? Why is it red then?
New announcer Cody Earnshaw was struggling in the booth, but about halfway through the first, got a little help.
Hello. Oh, hello. Hello. Who are you? You're the actual commentator. You'll know what's going on here. You can help me.
Ich glaube nicht, dass das meine richtige Aufgabe ist.
And you're German. You're German. I will get no reprieve.
Ich helfe, wenn Sie Hilfe brauchen. Aber du kannst mich nicht verstehen.
No, I understand you perfectly, mate, but I'm assuming you were expecting to call something other than hockey.
Bayern gegen Torpistole.
Yeah, you're about 6,000 kilometers off, mate. Well, we're in the same boat. We might as well help each other out.
As soon as the German Sebastian Poopy arrived, things started to pick up.
Proper bloke there, no question. Oh, he nutmegs his man. Oh my God! He's vaulted into the Ferris wheels dugout! What a huge hit! Wheels regroup around midfield.
Mitteleis.
Oh, middle ice.
Mitteleis.
Oh, center ice. Good-o. Vilsic. Oh my God! Inky Iverson blows him up! There are pieces of Botulis Vilsic spinning away from his shattered form. Struth, what a hit!
But the Joker's vaunted defense remained a step behind, and once again got burned for it.
Es ist ein
Elfmeter. Ein Freischussversuch.
Oh, he's interfered with him. Oh, and it's that pissant Dietrich too. Oh, he can really rub it in here with a goal. We're having him shoot from all the way out there. That seems a little difficult. Let's just see here. Ooh, little flashy twirl of the stick, and here we go. Dietrich says something to the sideline there. What's that about? Now is all business. He shoots, and it's a goal! Off the bar and in. And he does the most annoying little jig I've ever seen. That's Jacob Voracek. I think this league didn't hire a photographer, so they just lifted the headshots from the actual NHL. Unbelievable.
A string of penalties against Sober Island, possibly makeup calls, practically gifted the Jokers the momentum.
Price to Scraglione, right down the gut! A great block there by Bajillions. Looked like it stung him a little bit, wonder why.
Den Puck besteht aus vulkanisiertem Gummi.
Vulcanized rubber sounds absolutely metal. Moran, great try there, but Happy Bajillions once again deflected it wide. And Moran gives Dietrich a shove, look at that. And Moran beats down Bajillions, steals the puck, he scores! What a score from Moran!
30 years down the line, Moran might get lung cancer from his smoking habits. But right now, he gets a little bump, and that much more energy to will the Jokers to their first goal of the playoffs. Totally worth the risk. The rest of the team responded in kind.
It's challenged well. Toledo takes it and is blown up by Scraglione! Yes! Oh, yes! Prodigy on prodigy, I love it! Knockdown, he'll take it back, a try! Save Saldavs. Play off Price's face, he'll shoot! Another stop by the goalkeeper. The Ferris wheels still can't clear the zone.
The game got pretty heated as the second period wound down.
Lehman 360s Vilsic, great move, and Dietrich tattoos him to the ground. 10-on-10 violence. The brothers from another's mothers get involved with each other there.
And picked right back up again at the start of the third, as if it had never stopped.
This is great. It's like I'm on drugs again. Slayer, I think, has the puck, but Scraglione takes his lunch money. Scraglione alone, he shoots and scores! A quick shot from Scraglione. Slayer, just dodged a hit from the oncoming train named Scraglione. Not sure why, but I'd love to see it. Chevalier back to Slayer, and Michelle Marie Moran sends Doug Slayer to a theoretical realm. Slayer up to Vilsic. Scraglione picks his pocket at the line. A juke, a shot, just wide. What a goal that would have been to take the lead. It's Miranda Lehman in center. A shot off the blocker and just wide. It's Pillock. He shoots. Glove down, but Pillock throws himself at the net. Through two defenders. He scores! Pillock! Robertinho Pillock! He would not be denied.
Gunter Saldavs had been valiantly holding down the fort in the last two periods, but he could only do so much with how passively the defense in front of him was playing. The Joker's defense, on the other hand, protected the lead masterfully.
To the outside, hitting and sprinting to the net, knocked down a shot, and Yaroslav, no I'm not, saved a great chance. He's keeping his team alive if they want to have any chance of tying it, and here comes the chance. Peter Dietrich, staring down walls, save by Walls!
A bit too masterfully. They parked the bus in the third, dropping the defense all the way back, and it made for a pretty boring last 10 minutes where the Ferris wheels didn't really get anything going. All the same, the Jokers deserved the win, and they got it. After Game 1, the media tore into both teams for playing kitty-bar-the-door hockey, with long stretches of play where the defense befuddlingly backed all the way off pressure and smothered Walls and Soldavs. Both teams were defensive, but that's overkill, even for a stupid league like the LOHL. Didn't mean the game was boring, though. I mean, look at all these stats. Do these stats appear if things didn't happen? I don't think so. The Ferris wheels couldn't have been satisfied with their Game 1 performance. They managed only 16 shots to the Joker's 29 and took quite a few penalties. It's almost like they eased up. But why would they do that? I know Inky Iversted's pads reek and he was out there for almost half the game, but these guys are supposed to be professionals. It's almost like they knew they had more mulligans than the Jokers did. It's almost as if they knew they only needed to beat the Jokers once to advance. It's almost as if the Jokers had put it in writing that if they lost one game, they'd forfeit the series. But there's no way. 2 days before Game 1, Albert Barnacle, the most persuasive man in the world, sat down at the Happy Nun with Carlisle Gilchrist, a man not insusceptible to getting drunk. After downing a fifth of absinthe, Barnacle, who was apparently impervious to alcohol, suggested that Gilchrist's team would never beat the Ferris wheels and that they wouldn't even win one game. Gilchrist said they could win any game. Barnacle said prove it. Gilchrist, brash as ever and with less than 15% of his wits, then and there wrote a legally binding contract on a napkin that the Jokers would win every game, and if they didn't, would forfeit the whole series. Barnacle's plan worked, and all it took was Gilchrist getting a ring from an EAP. The story broke a few hours after Game 1, when Barnacle said his team didn't want to win because they knew they had it easy. It was all an effort of lighting a fire beneath them to get that one win and get to the second round. When asked how on earth he didn't get inebriated off a fifth of absinthe, Barnacle responded, "It's not called Drunk Island, is it?" As if that explained anything. Tiffany Hopkins responded to the call-out by having Sober Island forward lines thrown into a blender. Wardow Wilson was scratched, and Juuso Vannamoinen slotted in on the third line, knocking Eddie Pengilly down to the fourth line. Doug Slayer called a press conference, which is a thing he could do apparently, and made a huge stink about the lines needing to stay together to maintain the alignment of their chakras. Naturally, all the media could talk about was his inane blubbing. The Jokers did nothing. They didn't need to, they played fine. But now, upset at their situation and with no mulligans left all of a sudden, they were fighting for their lives. They were up 1-0 in the series, but they might as well have been down 3-1, given the legally binding nature of the napkin contract. It was a tough spot for both teams, but a tougher one for the Jokers. Carlisle Gilchrist, to his credit, did face the music, giving a quick speech to his team before Game 2. Technically, I put us down 3-0, but even when it looks like you may lose in 4, there's always a chance, however small, that you can also lose in 5, 6, or 7. Was either team going to wiggle out of it? Well, thanks to a first-hand account of a very, very special guest, we can find out for ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, all rise.
All right, it's Game 2 between the St. Louis Doohaha Jokers and the Sober Island Ferris wheels. If you're watching this game, congratulations, you're among the 4 other people on this planet to do so. First period, not a lot going on, but who stands tall amidst the 20 minutes of nothing? It's Aloysius Walls. This guy's got the best blocker in the league. It's so good, Iversteed tries to pull a quick one and go 5-0, but the chap is too sharp. 0-0 game at the end of 20. Now, to the second. Look at the Jokers in the O-zone. Way too passive. No one's got balls to drive to the net. That puts Wyrozub on his heels and Ferris wheels go on the transition. A breakout that a coach has wet dreams over, and that springs a B-wave for Hinnanen. He gets tripped up, almost sneaks in a cheeky one, but who's on the doorstep? It's Peter Dittrich. Death, taxes, and Dittrich being Mr. Reliable on both sides of the pill. He pokes her home to give the Ferris wheels a 1-0 lead. Then we got a response from the Jokers. Morin, fresh off an intermission dart, slips up high where there's space, sends it over to Lehman, and he rings the doorbell for the goal. Both of these teams play passive enough to make you want to put your head through a wall, but the Jokers take full advantage on the defensive passivity of the Ferris wheels. Now, this is where the Jokers start humming. Balter Scraglione, kid sick, not sick enough though to beat the glovely hand of Soldavs. This game is tied at 1 at the end of the second. Fire up the darts, chill the beer, and let Captain Moran start the third on the PK. He harasses Pula like he owes him money, goes on a breakaway, backhand, forehand, thanks for coming out. 2-1 game for the Jokers. Side note, the Ferris wheels power play was an absolute joke. Just pizza after pizza, endless giveaways to the Jokers, sucking all the momentum from the Ferris wheels. Not to mention, I've never seen a team so passive in my life. GM Barnacle may be the most convincing man in the LOHL, but god damn it, if he doesn't storm down to the locker room and convince his guys to get greasy, the Ferris wheels are in trouble. Lehman gets the dagger with the empty net. That dirty rat starts dancing in front of the other team on an empty net goal. Classless. Act like you've been there, buddy. What's going on? That's the dagger, and the Jokers pull off another come-from-behind win in the Nowhere Bowl. I'll be painfully honest with you. I don't get paid damn near enough to analyze these two teams play. But I have to admit, the Lehman, Scaglione, and Moran line impressed the hell out of me in Game 2, and if they get all that time and space again in Game 3, look out.
Dickery and shenaniganage from Florian Lehman aside, St. Louis du Haha had some choice words for the Sober Island franchise in the post-game media scrum, with Lehman, of course, and Moran taking some shots at the underhanded tactics of Albert Barnacle. The usually soft-spoken Inky Iverstedt said, "The Lord gave us the victory today, but the Ferris wheels took that L all on their own." Doug Slayer in his gaping pie hole retorted back the next day, "I don't need no stinking hallelujahioid telling me how the game went. He sold more calls to the refs than I've had hot dinners in my life." The media ate this up because Inky Iverstedt did not actually draw a single penalty. Nobody knew what the Sober Island captain was on. Despite winning 2 straight, the Jokers weren't really in a position to feel that good about it. They were still technically facing elimination, remember. They needed to win the next 2 straight up. They'd relied heavily on their top pairing of Iverstedt and Lemoine, and almost all of their scoring came from their top line. Moran was asked post-game about what it was that made his top line so effective.
It is love, ma chérie. Love of this game of life. It plays out with such beauty in the arena. The ice. She is a hungry mistress. But I must go. I will be taking Monica Bellucci on a tour of my nightclubs in my Jaguar. I will be unavailable for comment.
Top-heavy success in the playoffs is not sustainable. For Trogdor, fixing Iverstedt and Lemoine's ice time was easy. Just split them up, going from a great first pair and an okay second pair to 2 1A pairs. Getting the rest of the team to score, that's tougher. But an opportunity presented itself to mix the lines up a bit. Second-line center Chase Price had tweaked his shoulder in Game 2, and since he spent absolutely no money except on food, bills, and his car, he absolutely refused to pay for his medical treatment to speed up the healing process, apparently not realizing that the team would foot that bill. So with him out, the 21-year-old Chundler Thundermere, a sort of Scaglione light, was promoted to the second line. Yaroslav Noemnot, who is not a natural center but was good for maybe a 45% on the faceoff dot, took the rickety 2C position. Called up to fill the bottom 6 gap was none other than a beloved guy who had worked his tail off to get to the bigs, Sempronius H. Boyd. A good offensive player who only hadn't really been a contributor in the L because he wasn't all that fast. But Troy Dorian saw his offensive skill and mitigated his speed liability by putting him on the first power play unit. A bold move. We'll see if it pays off. On the other side of the aisle, the Ferris wheels were starting to sweat a little bit. They effectively were 1 loss away from blowing a phantom 3-0 series lead. Not time to panic, right? Well, Tiffany Hopkins responded by having the Sober Island forward lines thrown into a blender. Bertulis Vilcinch was promoted to the top line, and Peter Dittrich was demoted to the third line, giving the young Shart Atari his chance to prove himself in the top 6. Juuso Vanimoinen was scratched again, Quint S. Enschel Butcher was re-promoted to the third line, and Wardell Wilson came back in the fold as the 4C. I'm not one to tell a coach how to do their job, but overkill maybe? Regardless of appropriateness, the roster juggling had a very pleasant effect on this once defensive series, and the ensuing explosion, I think, is a phenomenon that should be told by one more skilled than I. Again.
We're done when I say we're done.
Toledo in, shot off the post! Give it to Lehman, send it to Moran! He scores! Here comes Vilcinch the other way! He's looked by Wyrazum! He whacks McFeely away! Corrals, he shoots, he scores! Across to Atari, he shoots, he scores! Wyrazum over the blue line, look out! Returns to Daniels, flattened, Boyd alone in center! Bodies flying everywhere!
I love it in here. I fucking love it!
Oh, they're not just gonna sit back and play to not lose, are they? To Boyd. Quick shot, he scores!
Oh my God!
Who are you?
You know who I am.
I do.
Sempronius H. Boyd.
Lehman will take it up himself now, 1-on-3. Nice move to get inside, but Jillian's what a fool! Still keeps away from Toledo. Great work, soft feed down low to Scraglione! Split save by Cheese again! Inside to Lehman off the post! The shot is blocked, and it comes to the corner. No, I'm not the other way. Thundermere and Ryerson with him. This is the Thundermere. He scores! Toledo takes it himself. Shoots! Blocked, it's in the air! He scores! Scraglione up. Skates. Ooh, impeccable head fake around in, and then he sold him the goods. Boyd centers. Scraglione shoots! He scores! Just after the power play expires. And guess what the defense was doing? Again! Nothing! Up ahead from the Ferris wheels. Chevalier far side. Centering pass, Pilsen scores!
You complete me. I love you.
Moving up slowly. In it. Line now to Bajillions. A shot! Bluffed down by Walls. Windermere off the fadeaway. Winds up.
Smells like pee-pee and poo-poo in here.
It's gotta be Tony.
2-on-2 will take Dracula's wide. In a shot! Off the bar!
This is a hell of a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be.
And then Schultz rectifies his crash mistake. A quick shot is stopped by Walls.
Hey, how are you?
He scores! Chandler Thundermere with 6:02 to go. Oh, but Kamenuka boofs it. Here comes Scraglione. Scraglione, wrist shot, comes back to it. Another save by Cheese. Where is it? He's got it, but no! He scores! Scraglione scores! It trickled in. Oh my heavens! Feel like there, a shot. Great save by Cheese. The rebound, they score.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
Of the 3 games thus far, this one probably took the most out of the 2 teams. Half of the Sober Island roster had to enter quarantine overnight to wash all traces of Inky Iverstedt off of them. Charles Cheese faced a lot of media scrutiny for coming in relief of Gunter Saldavs and allowing 7 goals. Akil Lemoine's mustache got clipped by an errant stick. The police spent hours searching for him. Chandler Thundermere celebrated being 21 by going out to drink, but upon discovering that the drinking age in Quebec is 18 and he'd waited for 3 years for nothing, he drowned his sorrows. It was a dark time for the Nowhere Bowl, but it was the darkest for Albert Barnacle. He'd essentially pulled the strings to get his team up 3-0, and they'd lost 3 straight. A winner-take-all Game 4 was upcoming, and all the pressure was lying on the Ferris wheels. Tiffany Hopkins responded by having the Sober Island lines thrown into a blender. And Happy Bajillions finally got a much-needed and much-deserved promotion in the place of Sammy Pulha, who got a much-deserved demotion to, not a retirement home, but the second pairing. Doug Slayer said to the media, "The commissioner should have extended our series to a best-of-8, so we could beat the Jokers 5 straight times. Our rivalry with them is the same kind of rivalry a bug has with a windshield." Again, blatantly false. Nothing changed for the Jokers, nothing needed to. The series would be decided, one way or the other, with these 2 lineups. And it was a showdown that had quite a bit of historical significance, as it turns out. It came out before the game that, about 90 years prior to this series, according to research done by Pilchard Echterhoff, a game was played in 1913 on the frozen wastelands of Sober Island between some local lads and visiting trappers from San Luis du Jaja. San Luis' lineup consisted of people with the names Dick Jizcum, Pekka Uko Ass Nasty, Paulie Wally Hedron, General Jank, and Captain Largy Courvoisier. The home Sober Islanders had McCragle Goofrey, Baltimore Buttons, Nice and Warm, Drummy Chickens, and Captain Tyrant Fleshhead. Nobody knows the score or who won, because the island was nearly wiped out in the 1914 German mistake bombing, and records were lost to time. But Pilchard Echterhoff calls this the very first LOHL game. Now here it was, effectively recreated 92 years later, as a best-of-7 kind of 4 series. But you know what's funny? Nobody cared, because nobody knew these teams. It's a shame. But now, in the 2020s, you care. You know these teams. And now you get to see what became of them in their desolation. Like hockey would have been in 1913, this game of hockey started pretty slowly.
Bit of a tentative start to the game. Both teams obviously are playing for each and every marble today. Every little decision they make is important. Heinen will reload and gun it all the way down. Windermere's in after it and What? He retreats! He totally backed off! Inky Iverstead collects it! Love a duck! Inky Iverstead's scheme of being so rancid that the attackers back off him has worked!
But both defenses finally started to make some mistakes.
Stopped up and he's tripped up by Schultz! Ah! Walls makes the save on Schultz. I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me there. No call though, that's bollocks. Yaroslav, no, I'm not. Well, is he or isn't he? Send us all the way to Wyrazub!
Oh, 9.
Oh no. Oh, Matt Wyrazub. Oh, Matt, you can't do that. You can't miss the net from there. In 2005...
Appropriate for the legatees of 1910s hockey, apparently some of them still thought forward passes were not allowed.
Now fair. Taken by Lehman! What are you doing, Florian? You buffoon! You utter cad!
Somehow, out of that idiocy, there came the chance to score the game's opening salvo.
To make some breakfast with the scoreboard. Scrambled goose eggs over easy. The captain goes wide. You know, I wish memory erasure was real.
Can't say why, but after that attempt, everyone seemed to get a lot more angry.
He goes sliding away there. That's pretty funny. What the dickens? Inky Iverstead with an enormous shot. Good lord. Moves it ahead to Pillock, who had the game-winning goal all the way back in game 1. Down the left-hand side, Kemnuka challenges and somersaults Pillock over him. Oh, my stars above. Team McFeely back off again. But here he comes and Peyton Modal crushes Dietrich a shot. He got up anyway and managed to fire one off. Holy hell, things are starting to open up here. Dietrich shoots again. What's happening in the crease? Schultz just did a swan dive onto Aloysius Walls. They're letting everything go. Interference, swan diving, war crimes, help! Pengilly gets it to Sharifov right to the hoop. Wilson stopped at point blank range by Walls. Sharifov at 360 and it goes just wide. Sends it there to the crease, it's loose. Pengilly shoots, he scores! And Aloysius Walls whacks him across the legs.
In some cruel irony, the ice-breaking goal would be scored by Eddie Pengilly, who was only in a good spot to slam the rebound home because he had backed off Iverstead because of the stink. The tactic had worked against the Joker's defenseman at a critical juncture.
Lose? Goddamn. Oh! Lehman steals! Florian Lehman! What are you doing, you Swiss bastard? That's the wrong way! You shit stain of a man! Amon walks the line, powers up a wrist to score! What a shot by the Moine! He put every ounce of his body into that and it rocketed by cheese.
Well, despite not completing a forward pass in nearly a full period of playing time, the Jokers somehow found a way to score anyway, from too far out to be scored on by a wrist shot. I mean, come on, Charles Cheese. The Ferris wheels had blown a lead in every single game of the series. They would not let it finally unravel their season.
Hitting in 1-on-3. This is not the Monopoly, son. You're not that guy. There you go. Drugulus steals it. In comes Windermere! What a hit! Oh my goodness! Drugulus is shaken up. Anyway, it's no, I'm not to Wyrazub. Split save by Cheese. And Happy Bajillion's cadaver is broomed aside like a burrito wrapper. There he comes again. Slithers up to Bajillion's a quick shot. Deflected down and off the post.
The Joker's second line, especially Matt Wyrazub, took control of the second half of the second period.
Again, Wyrazub shoots. A glove save by Cheese. Bajillions is exhausted. He can only send it to Heinonen. But Thundermere stick checks the attempt and shoots. Split save by Cheese again. Pelha pressured by No I'm Not, and here they come again. They just don't stop. No I'm Not takes it all the way wide. He's got Wyrazub in the center. Got it. Saved by Cheese.
V off.
What is he doing? The Joker's bringing it all the way back down. Janvier pitches in from the point. Wyrazub out in front. Thundermere to No I'm Not backhander. Stopped by Cheese. And Vilcinch breaks away. Vilcinch with his 800th breakaway of the series. Here he comes. Forehand. Saved by Wolves.
40 minutes had passed, and the goalies were stealing the game on either side. In the final regulation period of the series, someone, a hero for the Jokers to deliver them from a phantom 3-0 hole, or a savior from the Ferris wheels to redeem them from a terrible choke, had to find some way to beat Walls or Cheese.
Scaglione, but Toledo has it. Spinorama! Bad save by Walls! What a save! Wyrezoom held up at the line for a minute now. No, I'm not takes. No, I'm not to Wyrezoom. Great interchange there! Vandermeer is stopped at the end of the line by Cheese. No, I'm not. Head up, still trying to look for a pass in the slot. Wyrezoom there, 360 from him! Just a hair wide. Iverstead inches to pick it up. Sanderson, no, I'm not! Off the post, and Cheese snatches the puck before he could create a rebound. Wilson head up, gets interrupted, but gets it back again. A shot! Forehand split stop by Walls. Toledo, I guess a screen pass or a check down to Vilsich at the far boards. And Vilsich brings him! Saved by Walls! The X Factor! The legend continues! Pelham, the fool, he pinched it too far and he sucks at skating, he can't get back in time! Shot! Saved by Cheese! He made it look easy! One back to Janvier. Cute little move for no reason whatsoever. Shot! Deflected through the arm of Charles Cheese and off the post. Wallbridge steals right to the net. Stopped by Cheese! Listen to this crowd! McGilly skates it up to safety. Dishes to Sharifov. McGilly booking it straight to the net and set a shot! Walls! Another huge save! Oh, it's basically routine at this point. Smart looking breakout here. Moran up to Scaglione. Ahead of steam, dips around one, dives around two. He scores! Bolter Scaglione! 6:37 to go, and the Jokers have the lead! Ich bin sprachlos!
After being shut down and frustrated for almost all of Game 4, Bolter Scaglione pulled the greatest goal of the entire first round out of the air and grabbed the lead with extreme prejudice. 6 minutes from moving on.
And here comes Chevalier! And Iverstead with a perfect stick check to wrest control away from Chevalier. Staring down to the Joker's best defenseman. Vilsich will take it out wide. Sends it to Chevalier! Blocked by Lemoine! And Scaglione will skate it out. They can't pull the goalie because the Jokers have control now. No, I'm not takes a minute to recover. Why is the defense still sitting back? This is their season! Vandermeer at center! He scores! I have reached the conclusion that the Ferris wheels have deserved their defeat!
All that's left is the shouting. A 4-game sweep for the Jokers capped off one of the most interesting forgotten series of our time. In a no-name league, in a no-name place, the Nowhere Bowl tried so hard to rid the world of its own existence, to be swallowed up by its own nothingness. But the teams were populated by players who loved hockey and thus gave us their very best. Well, most of them. The Scaglione-Moran-Lehman line was absolutely dominant all series. Looking at every matchup in the first round of all 8 playoff teams, I'd say they were the best line of them all. In the future, with Chase Price out, they'd have to manage with their star power, clutch goaltending, and extremely boring and extremely stinky defense. The loss would have been the most embarrassing and inexcusable in franchise history for the Ferris wheels, essentially blowing a 3-0 lead, if there was anyone there to rag on them for it. But most of the natives on Sober Island are just glad that other human beings visit the island from time to time, so they don't really care if they lost. But all the same, for now, the Scaglione-Toledo rivalry had a score of 1-0 Bolter, but there would be more in years to come. The story goes, Sticky Toledo approached Doug Slayer sometime in the offseason and asked him something to the effect of, "Cap, you're pretty normal in the locker room. Why do you say such bonkers stuff to the media?" And his captain replied, "I put the heat on me so they don't put the heat on you. I'd rather they tear me down for talking about chakras and crap than tear you down for having 1 point all series." Toledo would go on to have a long and fruitful career, eventually acquiring a captaincy himself, and he never forgot what Doug Slayer told him that day. 2 teams who were glaringly different in a few places, but so very alike in many others, somehow played a lopsided and close series that bored some, entertained many, and confused all. But that's precisely the kind of spectacle that belongs in the LOHL. For a series played with hardly anybody around, it felt right at home.
The video's not over yet.
There's still one more series in the 2005 LOHL quarterfinals. We're going to cover it right now. You thought there was going to be one series in this video. Oh no, there's two. April Fools.
Who kidnapped Tightus Kloompf? This series was a controversial one, again, but one with much more dire consequences. This is the story of a man named Tightus Kloompf, the pride of Gwimble upon Bimblebobby. Although he doesn't really show up that much, but he's important. He is important. He's very important to the story. He ends up being the victim of a cavalcade of unfortunate circumstances that could only appear in the LOHL, in the other Nowhere Bowl, between the Head Smashed and Buffalo Jump and the Forget What. These two teams are somehow even more isolated than the Jokers and Ferris wheels. Those two were called the Nowhere Bowl because few people knew them or watched them in the middle of nowhere. Forget and Head Smash and Buffalo Jump were called nothing because people genuinely forgot that they existed. The Head Smashed and Buffalo Jump do not have a team name. The geographic location is called Head Smashed and Buffalo Jump. That's the entire name. The LOHL commissioner decreed when they joined the league that it was too many letters, and if they wanted to enter the league, they'd have to leave it as is without a team name, or add a team name and pay the dreaded name tax. They kept it as is. They didn't have a mascot either, or even a goal horn. The What, like the HSIBJ, are an LOHL original team from 1989 to 90. They kind of have a team name, but it's more often uttered ironically than not. Playing off the what joke, their mascot is an owl, because brains or something, and his name is Who. Somebody thought really long and hard for that one, no doubt. But at least he wasn't a weirdo like so many other people in this league. He was often seen promoting gentlemanly hockey skills and etiquette at Learn to Skates, doing photo ops, and eating mice. Last year someone made a Five Nights at Freddy's game about him, though. The teams got where they were in 2005 through completely opposite means. And to explain those, I'll be bringing another friend of mine on.
When I think of the HSIBJ, I think of one phrase: model franchise. But that wasn't always the case. 3 years earlier, the Buffalo Jump had some talent but lacked a true identity. To rectify this, the HSIBJ turned to the people of Alberta, conducting a province-wide raffle to name their next general manager. The lucky winner, Jeff Slightenround, lovingly called Mr. Slightenround by HSBJ fans and players alike. Slightenround was ecstatic to get the call and put in his 2 weeks at Canadian Tire, where he had previously been the manager of the tire department. While the first 14 days on the job were difficult, Mr. Slightenround made the changes necessary to build the Buffalo Jump into a powerhouse, selling players that were talented but bad fits, and truly creating a culture and identity in Head Smashed In, as it felt like he never made a bad move. The culture and identity were built around Captain Rick McEnroy, a tough-as-nails killer on the blue line with some offensive punch. McEnroy was one of the few men left from the aimless team Slightenround took over and was the only member of the squad still allowed to smoke in the locker room. Southrop Grummer, a newer addition to the team, should be familiar to any fan of the LOHL. A multiple-time league MVP and surefire Hall of Famer, Grummer's production had slowed down by 2005, but the kindly elder skatesman energy he brought complemented McEnroy's gruff exterior beautifully. The true star of the squad was the tenacious Anton Pavirukin, who always made things happen with what famed radio host Gord Gordon called European skill mixed with Canadian heart. Jig Danceable rounded out the top line with his electric talent. 2005 was his first year in Head Smashed In, and it was the perfect fit for Danceable's personality after his time with the Wyoming Michiganders, where he had long been seen as just a showboat. Linus von Gloryland had played well for the HSBJ in net, and though the pompous descendant of German royalty was probably the least likable member of the team, and took the job from the beloved Vasily Nozdrin, the rest of the team tolerated him just by keeping the conversation to a minimum. Aside from their stars, the HSBJ had very sound secondary scoring that could get even better, with struggling second liner Spitzer, Hammerhead, Boogerworth starting to move past the bullying he had received from opposing fans for his eyes being too far apart. The Buffalo Jump were a complete squad that would beat you with their skill and their effort at every turn. They were culture and identity personified. Now their opponents, the Forget What, certainly have an identity. GM coach Gord Gordon, yes, the radio host, had complete say over the team from player acquisition to systems. He decided that every player on the team should play like his two favorite players played. Captain Booze Drinkin' Shamilton and the team's leading scorer Fakid Sharton were the icons of the What, and were often seen going out on the town alongside their coach to Shiray's Snack Shack. These two men were the prototypical power forwards, fast, hard-hitting, both with a decent scoring touch. You know, they forecheck, they hit the defenders, they were both quite good. The What had some good defensemen too. Number 1 Wesson Smith ran the power play like Alexander the Great, but he frequently was unavailable as he averaged nearly a fight per game. Smith's partner, Raytheon, partly as a result of Smith's antics, often found himself playing close to 30 minutes per night. His deployment always came in extremely difficult circumstances. His plus-minus was subterranean, and when asked for comment on that stat, Theon responded, "I don't know what that is that math or something?" In net is free agent signee Burt Russell, who had been very, very good. Now I know you're saying, no he hadn't, his stats suck, but let me explain. You see, when I said Gordon wanted his players to play like Shamilton and Sharton, I probably undersold it. He wanted all of his forwards to play identically. In a quote on his radio show, Gord Gordon said, "I want everyone to be Sharton, risking it, knowing something bad might happen, and just letting it go anyway." So every member of the forward depth was forced to play with reckless abandon in what was lovingly referred to as the 3-man deep forecheck. Needless to say, it led to a lot of odd man rushes headed Russell's way, many of which he weathered. Now this was before the advanced statistics era, so we don't have the exact numbers, but proto-analytics expert Darren O'Brien said that he, quote, expected a couple more of those shots to have gone in. I shouldn't need to say that this format really suppressed a lot of the more skilled players on the team, like Anatoly Smorin and Henry Lindquist, the latter of whom went on the Around the Dasher radio show to complain about the system, but was unfortunately shut down by its host, Gord Gordon. Now, I can't blame just the systems here. The bottom 6 players are alive, and some of them know how to skate. This complete lack of depth and this terrible system resulted in the What being dead last in goals for. They frequently got blown out of the water, but occasionally eked out a 1-goal win. For this mess to beat the model franchise that is the HSIBJ would take a miracle. Now back to you, Mr. Halls.
A series victory for the What of any kind would undoubtedly be miraculous, but miraculous is not the word I would use to describe how the first round had gone. More like apocalyptic. To start with, funny enough, both third-line centers for either team were absent. For Head Smashed In, it was depth playmaking center Steady Morrison, who was out with an undisclosed testicular injury. And for the What, it was Tightus Kloompf, a very well-liked member of the team. But he wasn't good. At least, he wasn't good before this season, with a points career high of 5 and career goals high of 3. But in this season, he had 9 goals and 9 assists apiece for 18 points. For most people in the LOHL, that wouldn't mean anything, but for Tightus Kloompf, it meant accusations of performance-enhancing drugs. He wouldn't play in the first 2 games of the series, but the controversy and subsequent investigations around Kloompf's drug usage would eventually cast a massive pall over this best of 7. But for now, the 7-seeded Forget What had to make some magic with the Honey Badger-like character they'd made for themselves. But if they were a Honey Badger, HSIBJ was an 18-wheeler. The game would be called by rookie broadcasting crew John Fitz and Dixon. They hadn't called a playoff series before, and they haven't called one since. Nobody really seems to know what they were doing there. But for Game 1, they were treated to more than a few surprises. The series started just about as you'd expect it to.
Referee's bastard toes block the clearing. The audacity. Wamarukin. Pomerukin centers the Grummer. He scores! South Rope Grummer. He pulled the puck to his forehead with the speed of an A-10 Warthog. That may have been the most mildly talented goal I've ever seen. Pretty well. Now over to Smorin. The rusty jerk goes into the corner. And eat your blinking blitz shows him the will of God. He fires it ahead to Armisted's Swagabond. He shoots, he scores! Armistead Swagabond, the God-blessed American Middlesex Bloodhound. He makes it 2-0 before I've even had a chance to vomit.
Well, that'll happen. The top two lines for the Buffalo Jump break the ice before the series is even half a period old, for simply outclassing the what. However, one would notice they were getting a little cocky.
That's not the kind of thing you want to see from the home team. They're already miles and miles better than the what. They don't also need to show off to the crowd. Smarn and Sporkin' Buddy charge for Sporkin' Buddy shoots, it's blocked at Honeywell! He had lighted one glory land down and out, and he didn't make a lick of difference.
Spitzer Boogerworth, unfortunately, was still off his game.
And a shot! Rebound! Boogerworth can't put it home. He blew it. Remind me to never trust Spitzer Boogerworth with any confidential secrets. Smith pressured him now. Swindles him of his rightful possession of the puck. But Grummer's positioning is sound. Centers to Pomerukin. Saved by Russell. And goes through. Scores! Anton Pomerukin. This first line is the gold standard.
If social media was around in 2005, this would have been the point where the Forget What fans would have called for Russell's head. But that tough goal notwithstanding, he and the defense would lock down the fort for the rest of the game.
Up ahead, danceable, but he is sandwiched by Smith and Theon, and the puck is sent away. Hamilton trundles into the attacking territory. Flukiger has it now. He scores! Oh my God! I was not expecting him to shoot the puck, and yet he did. The East German gets the Forget What on the board with a quick wrister.
It's just a score, Dick. Sit down. Linus von Gloryland is a decent goalie, but sometimes he isn't. That's all.
Here comes Spitzer Boogerworth. He's trying to do precisely that. Slithers like a loser into the corner, and Weston Smith lays him over his knee like a loser deserves. Terrible play there from Spitzer Boogerworth, the ultimate dipstick. Swagabond, right down the national ball. He shoots. Bert Russell. And Bacon Mitch can't control it. Here comes Sporkin' Buddy. Sporkin' Buddy fighting up Bacon Mitch. He moves in the back and he gets in there. He has the soul of a true American patriot.
The thing about teams with no talent is that they usually have heart and effort. Todd Sporkin' Buddy, a player most undeserving of playing in the top six. The What defense was buttoning up, they were getting some depth scoring, and they were doing what they did best.
Jack and Brugman will collect. He gave it up to Swing Russell with a huge save. Berg Russell bails out that Switzer Lloyd Hugo Brugman. How embarrassing for him. Brugman now to short new pancake Swagabond. The What have certainly got the upper hand when it comes to the physical side of the game. To the shock of absolutely no one.
Nothing's gonna happen.
Church moves all the way down south with the puck. And now he centers the Flickiger. Shot block. Rebound. And Hamilton's follow-up was blocked as well. A trio of Buffalo jumpers could not knock him off of the puck. Smith pitches in. Something has possessed the Forget What. Back and forth passing. Look at this puck movement. To Hamilton. Save Linus von Gloryland. That was impressive.
Dixon, you fool. That was Forget What's top line. They are very good. Unfortunately, it is the rest of the team that is terrible. They will suck as soon as this line gets off the ice. John Fitz's words were prophetic. The What's top line actually proved to be a handful, but when you go from facing Sharton, Shamilton, Flirkiger to Smorin, Honeywell, Sporkin' Buddy, you're gonna do a lot better.
Down like a Soviet mole. And John Patrick gives him the what for. John Patrick blows him up. Shot deflected. It goes wide. I can't believe what I'm going to. Upshur passes it up to Oxygen. Honeywell like a guided missile and it kills him. Bowie Honeywell desired blood and he got it. Dave Person Graymans the free-thinking puck into the laissez-faire wall. Gives it all back to Oxygen. Blocked by Dakota Team rebound. Save and another by Bert Russell at the horn. On Kusarobi. My God. My God.
As much as the Buffalo Jump had dominated the first period, the second was very much level. Advantage Forget, I'd even say. But Buffalo Jump still held the lead, though it was only one. Surely this perfectly constructed team could muster another goal for some breathing room. If head smashed and Buffalo Jump are unable to generate offense, their capacity to turtle must be and has to be massive to deter all forms of choking.
Choking? My God, they didn't tell me there was choking in this sport. They're trying to get me.
As time whittled away, the stars of both teams brought out everything they had in the bag.
Here comes Anton Pomerukin, born in the very heart of the Kremlin, in a witch's brew. and he is whiffed off the puck by Yuri Herda, who is cross-checked by Jake Danson. Oh! Paparukin with a vile, dirty, unchristian hit on Sharton. Decibel! 300 will save on Jake Decibel. Burt Russell is keeping forget in this game. That's Bandy to round at center, and here's Paparukin. Splits the D. He scores! No, he didn't. What in tarnation? HSI is 3 minutes and change adjusted for inflation away from not blowing it. Flukiger to Shamilton, shoots, save rebound, Karl-Heinz Flukiger, the East German, the game is all tied up. Tear down the wall!
Until this goal, nobody actually thought that Forget would get another. They hadn't really put up that much pressure, much less had any quality looks. And yet, the head-smashed-in defense didn't respect the shooting stick of Karl-Heinz Flukiger and lost their lead for it.
Know that hockey borrowed something from the greatest sport on earth. Going back to Smirchka. That's Borkin, buddy. A lot of S names on this team. Smirchka hits the blue line. It's gone! Winner Smirchka completes the comeback. With 1:42 to go, Forget What has the lead. Dear God, look at that butt chin.
Oh my goodness, you guys. To be a fly on the wall of the head-smashed-in bench after this goal, I bet it was silent as the grave. How could this happen? Maybe it seems less shocking than it is because the comeback essentially took place over 40 minutes, but it simply should not be that the head-smashed-in Buffalo Jump were even in the same stratosphere of having to play prevent. They should have been up by at least a touchdown. But they hadn't lost yet.
Drugs? My gods are using our own MK Ultra tactics against us. Here comes Mr. Boogerworth. Will he be worthy of more than boogers? He will not! And again, Burt Russell makes 2 saves to keep Forget What in the lead.
You're
33 seconds left.
It's becoming long in the tooth.
Hamilton, where's the goddamn goalie? I paid to watch hockey, not cowardice. Boogerworth, one last salvo, and it's wide. Boogerworth blew it. Well, his whole team did. Doesn't matter. They all get demerits. Forget What somehow steals a win and head-smashed-in Buffalo Jump.
It was the worst of times. It was the worst of times. Head Smash and Buffalo Jump had blown a 3-goal lead to a vastly inferior team, and they'd given up the game-winning goal to a guy named Smirchka. Ew. Peter Smirchka was one of those players who, when you think of them, you go, oh yeah, he played for them. He was about the last person you'd think would score a clutch playoff goal. In any case, the What's top line of usual suspects had done remarkably well in Game 1 up against HSBJ's top pair of Rick McEnroy and Jack Upshur, factoring on every goal except the last one. People in the know often said that Fockheed Sharton and booze-drinking Shamilton, while jovial enough off the ice, were machines on it. Sharton was an absolute slave to his superstitious routines, which at various points included army crawling across the ice during warm-ups, taking a lock of hair from a stranger, and facing Mecca. And Shamilton was allegedly one of the most intense players ever. He'd sit there on the bench and just stare. Apparently, it was a recipe for success against their opponents, who had no excuses. It was so dumb that Buffalo Jump lost that game. In no world should it have happened. But them being the professional team that they are, none of them did anything stupid or quirky, and their management didn't embarrass themselves. They just hunkered down and readied for Game 2. Meanwhile, Tightus Kloompf made comments from the LOHL holding cell that if he was released, he would make When Johnny Comes Marching Home his goal song. When Johnny Comes Marching Home is the favorite song of the LOHL commissioner, so many saw this as a pathetic attempt at bribery. It couldn't get him out in time for Game 2, as it occurred on the same day as his final hearing. So, while Tightus Kloomph's freedom hung in the balance, his team and the Buffalo Jump went at it once more. And by the power of Grey Skull, this game was absolutely insane. So I thought I'd bring on a huge fan of the league to narrate it. Once more with feeling.
Alright, I have to talk about Game 2 between Forget What and Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump because it was an absolute roller coaster. Right out of the gate, goaltender Burt Russell pulled off a move that had me screaming at my TV. For some reason, in the middle of sustained pressure by Buffalo Jump's top line, Russell left his crease and hid behind his own net. But that's not even the worst part. With the net empty, Forget What leaves Buffalo Jump's best player, Anton Pabirukin, wide open in the slot. He gets possession of the puck, shoots it, and misses. He missed. I don't know what's worse, Russell trying to stop pucks from behind the net or Pabirukin missing the easiest layup of all time. Anyway, Dilt Shrink laid a big hit on Todd Sporkenbuddy, who immediately tried to get revenge, but missed completely. This is a weird game so far. Meanwhile, the goalie at the other end of the ice, Linus von Gloryland, was locked in early, denying a Fockheed Sharton scoring chance and making a handful of solid saves to keep the game scoreless. The game got going for real when Rob Oxygen capitalized on a brutal giveaway by What defender Wesson Smith to put Buffalo Jump up 1-0. Captain Booze Drinkin' Shamilton tried to respond for his team, but he hit the post. Then Ray Theon got called for hooking late in the first period, and on the ensuing power play, Jig Danceable almost doubled the lead for Head Smashed In, but he also hit the post. Forget What killed the penalty, Russell made a few more saves, and the period ended with Buffalo Jump holding on to that 1-0 lead. At the start of the second, the two captains, Shamilton and McEnroy, decided it was time to throw hands, and when I say throw hands, I mean it. Absolute haymakers. No defense, just two guys punching each other in the face repeatedly. McEnroy technically won the fight with the takedown, but don't get it twisted, both guys are going to be smelling colors tomorrow. Then, Forget What decided to start giving Buffalo Jump free goals again. This time it was Smircha turning the puck over at his own blue line right to Dave Person, who made no mistake burying it past Russell to make it 2-0. And then just a few minutes later, Pobby Rukin said, "Watch this," pulled the puck between his legs and sniped another one past Russell. What a filthy goal that was. 3-0 Head Smashed In. Forget What needed something, anything to get back into this game. Their star players were nowhere to be seen and we were already halfway through the game. But that's when their fourth line stepped up in a big way. Watch here as power forward John Patrick danced around two defenders and snuck one past Gloryland to put his team on the board. 3-1 Buffalo Jump. Then power forward Anatoly Smorin nearly made it a one-goal game, but he hit the post. Then in the dying seconds of the period, he hit the post again. Brutal. Forget What finally started playing with some bite in the third, and it paid off quickly. Sharton got things started, scoring off a feed from Flurkiger, and suddenly it was 3-2 and momentum was shifting. Then, at the worst possible time for his team, Itjor Bacon Bits got called for hooking, and on the ensuing power play, defenseman Hugo Brugman made him pay with his first goal of the series, tying the game at 3s, and just like that, Buffalo Jump had blown a 3-goal lead for the second game in a row. But it got worse. Just a few minutes later, Bacon Bits took another penalty, this time for tripping, and on that ensuing power play, Fockheed Sharton potted his second of the game, giving Forget What their first lead of the night. 4-3 for What. Buffalo Jump finally woke up and started pressing. Russell had to come up huge multiple times, but eventually Dave Person beat him to tie the game at 4. This third line for Head Smashed In was absolutely feeling it in this game, and they weren't done there. Less than a minute later, they struck again. It was Person to Oxygen, and Buffalo was back in the lead with under 3 minutes left to play. What on earth are we witnessing right now? And as time ticked down, it really started to look like they had avoided the embarrassment of back-to-back losses to a team they should probably be able to beat. But Forget What wasn't giving up. With under a minute left, Flurkiger found Sharton and he blasted it past Gloryland for his third goal of the period, tying the game at 5 and sending it into overtime. What a wild-ass game. We didn't even make it a full minute into overtime before Buffalo Jump gave the dangerous Forget What power play another chance to shine. It was Pobby Rukin getting called for hooking. And based on how that third period went, I was expecting this one to be over fairly quickly, but no. Head Smashed In defender Scrambelt Egg was an absolute menace on the penalty kill. Egg was fairly quiet all night, but he stepped up when it mattered and single-handedly killed this penalty off to keep his team alive. The teams traded some pretty high danger scoring chances, but both goalies stood tall, and then, in classic playoff hockey fashion, mere seconds after What captain Booze Drinkin' Shamilton rang the puck off the post, Pobby Rukin gained possession and sent a wicked pass to Jig Danceable, and Danceable made no mistake. Game over. Buffalo Jump wins Game 2 6-5 in overtime, avoids back-to-back 3-goal blown leads, and ties the series at 1 apiece. So there you have it, one of the most chaotic playoff games you'll ever see. This series is shaping up to be pure madness. I can't wait to see what Game 3 has in store.
The Forget What had tried their little hearts out, but what could they do? Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump was a team that had star power, role guys, and a great system. And the Forget What sucked. After that legendary barn burner of a game, Tightus Kloompf was cleared of all steroidical charges and returned to the What lineup. This was controversial for 2 reasons. One, the means of his exoneration were suspicious. I mean, he was swollen, he had acne, and his hair was falling out. Those are all symptoms of steroid use. So many think that to release him, there was some corruption involved in the LOHL offices. The second reason it was controversial is because both teams were so poor that the HSIBJ had only one puck to use for the whole series, meaning when the puck left the ice, they'd have to wait for a spectator to throw it back down again. And Forget had none at all. But Tightus Kloompf returned to Forget with not just a puck, but a bag of pucks. Everything seemed a little too convenient. Nonetheless, he thanked Gord Gordon for sticking by him through the controversy, and extolled his virtues as a GM, which, as we all know, is a load of bull. The smarter GM on the other side of the ice tinkered with his lines, but only a bit. Mainly, Steady Morrison would be returning to the lineup to match Tightus Kloompf's return. Morrison is a way better player than Kloompf, though, on account of the fact that he can actually skate backwards. He would slot in as the second-line center, surprisingly, to not disrupt the chemistry of the third line, which dominated Game 2. Mr. Slightenround would have to make some decisions on the back end, as top-pair young stud Jack Upshur broke his arm in the third period and would be out for the playoffs, and Toivo Silver tweaked his shoulder and was considered day-to-day. So, knowing that his boys were heading into the lion's den of elbowing and charging that is Forget's home arena, Mr. Slightenround filled those spots on D with Kari Ahonen and Jeff McAslin. The former is a really big and really fast defenseman, and the latter is a fighter, plain and simple. Mr. Slightenround was actually asked what he thought of the return of Tightus Kloompf. "I don't think about it," he said. "He's a disgrace to the sport and to hard-working players everywhere." Ouch. Stronger words from Mr. Slightenround have almost never been heard before. But losing Game 1 had lit a fire under him, and in getting heated to the media, he lit a fire under his own players, as the series moved to Forget. But as mentioned, the Forget What is literally a poverty franchise. They can hardly afford anything. So the game engine the sport was played on in Forget was about 5 years older than in the rest of the LOHL. But some people say the way teams play in Forget is the best way to play. As you might expect, the What did absolutely nothing but try to beat the HSBJ into oblivion for nearly the first 10 minutes. What was feeling it, and they honestly started to show off a bit.
It's come out in what? Boeing Honeywell just tried to one-time the approaching puck through the legs of Danceable. What on earth makes him think he can do that?
It's social facilitation. It is when you get a psychological boost from knowing that everyone around you wants you to succeed. Ergo.
Don't you ergo me? Why don't you ergo screw yourself?
My self-esteem.
And it didn't take long for there to be some fireworks.
That's impressive, but there's something behind the play.
Oh my
goodness. It's beyond and awful.
Oh my dear Lord.
Oh my God.
It's going down
What's
here.
going up? What are they doing?
It's going down.
What's going to happen?
They're finally doing it.
Oh.
We knew it would happen. We knew it would happen.
Those men are fighting.
Finally,
oh my God. Oh, Theon are fighting. Oh, they were two quick overheads. Theon taking his arm free. They're grappling. Oh, they gets shot in the stomach. And here comes Theon back with two underheads. He can't quite brace him again. Theon keeps trying to go with the overhead, and he gets an overhead. One overhead, two overhead. He can't get the third as Theon blocks it. Theon's wearing out, and he crushes him with an overhead blast.
5 minutes and change later, the obstreperous Wesson Smith found Ahonen to avenge his line mate.
And it's blocked out, and Smith is having to go at Ahonen. They're
Here
gonna
we go again.
Ahonen and Smith.
A heavyweight bout.
A revenge for Wesson Smith's falling car. Oh, right in the face. He popped
my good Lord.
Smith is much more of a fighter than Theon. Let's see how he does. Another gut shot on it. Another gut shot on it. Right in the face. He's rearranging him. He's turning him into a block also. Oh, they can't get any shots in. Smith just wailing away at him. He's breaking ribs. Taking names. Another one in the face. He's got him down.
What an incredible fight.
Smith with
10 out of 10.
And Kari Ahonen is dead.
I would have paid to see that fight.
While the fights were scary and made me soil my trousers, I have a spare pair. Dixon always comes prepared.
Into the second period, Buffalo Jump finally got their feet under them and started to make some things happen.
By the God-fearing Republican HSIBJ. Centered in front, and they couldn't do anything with that again. And Paparukin is robbed by Russell. Drummer with the howitzer on the shot. But Berg Russell a stone ball, and he stretched out to get the rebound too. Oh my star.
But with one penalty, they risked giving it all.
Hookinger is blatantly hooked. He had a clear lane to the net, no draw penalty.
Actually, they didn't. The penalty actually blew the game wide open.
4 minutes left in the second period. What power play does... Oh, they score! Huh?
There's another one going on. Here we go again.
Shoot him, McCaslin.
Hoist up
The
your
two largest
suspenders,
players on either team. They're gonna break trade each other. And here they go again. Dakota T and McElroy on the other side of the ice. Dakota T is not a fighter. He's really maybe biting up one thing or two here. They're just wailing at each other.
Here comes Von Gloryland. Von Gloryland's coming down the ice.
Coming down the ice, and he tackled Bert Russell.
Trying to see a goalie
They're
fight.
Everyone's fighting, 6-man dueling on the ice. Everyone's throwing punches. Oh my God!
This is old-time hockey. Old-time hockey.
They're wheeling away at each other. Von Gloryland and Bert Russell. No one's got the upper hand yet. And that's destroyed my son. McElroy's got the upper hand on the corner. He's still holding his own pretty well. He's quite the pan and he goes down. A good shot from McElroy. What a dick! Von Gloryland and Bert Russell. They're still fighting. No one's got the upper hand yet. 2 uppercuts from Von Gloryland. Bert Russell can't land one. And finally, the ref comes in to break up the fight. Oh my God!
Lost in all the bedlam was a pretty weak goal given up by Russell, but reinvigorated by the fights, the What responded instantly.
Biscuit song. It's just one of those days.
Working money feeds the center. He's able to stop block like this, but they score! Unbelievable!
Finally, a fortunate bounce for Forget. The shot from Shamilton hits Nakonikny and drops straight down. McCaslin whiffed on it, giving Honeywell enough time to corral the... Hey, I need more replays to analyze the play.
It's paper replay up here, Jack. Money doesn't grow on trees in Alberta. I heard that sometimes they have to make electricity out of straw.
And the second intermission didn't halt their momentum in the slightest.
Stop there, Brugman again, across the serve, and he scores!
What a pass by Brugman. Not the most offensive-minded of defensemen, but he had eyes in the back of his head. Why am I not allowed to watch the replays? For the love of Marilyn Monroe.
Scrambled egg. A huge shot saved by Russell. So powerful he could get all of it. Score! Babarukin again. And we're tied again.
Russell was screened by Henry Lindquist. That's all I'm going to have time to say.
The teams were still tied, and they traded grade A chances for the remainder of regulation.
One players in front, and breaking out down the HSBJ will survive. Right down the middle, saved by Russell at the other end. Equal to the task. Off the bench, Lindquist, great pass to Shorten, and he fires! Another save by Von Gloryland. Each save more important than the last. Buffalo's having trouble getting it out here. Lindquist collects it, he'll come right back in, and completely give it away. Westmoreland blisters in after it. Man on a mission. Centers to Lindquist. Blocked. Rebound. Blocked. Guilt Swing saves a sure goal. What heroism.
Coming down to the wire here.
Grummer near side. Grummer, why not? It's blocked. Mid-air catch for Danceable. Off the post. Off the post and out the other side. Won by Person. The puck goes rogue. It's just sitting there. Center Nichols to Roby. Whip. Shot again. Save Russell. And a third shot is stopped by Oxygen. Russell stonewalled the ball. Valentine misses the puck. Shamilton. Fights off his man. Backhander. Save. Oh, I don't know if my heart can take this. You need that tape destroyed. I know some very good vendors. Oh my God!
A brutal interfering hit by McEnroy went uncalled in the final minute of regulation, and the series would hinge once again on an overtime result.
Rebound off the post! Lindquist just couldn't put it home. Oh, and now it's Morrison and Bookerworth. Bookerworth got it. Slapper score! Spencer Bookerworth! The head smash and Buffalo Jump have taken the series lead. Bookerworth finally does something right.
One game into Tightus Kloompf's return to the playoffs, and it was apparent that the beating, bruising style of play wasn't doing the What that many favors like it did earlier in the series. The HSBJ had gotten tougher as well, and it was suppressing the What's offense. It was only really the 6-man brawl after Pabarukin's first goal that the team showed any real signs of life. It was asserted that Tightus Kloompf himself suggested orchestrating such a brawl to his team, at the behest of Gord Gordon. Tightus, you should probably actually try to win the game. The HSBJ were not happy with the What's choice of response, even if the fights went about 50-50. Defenseman Scrambelt Egg, promoted to the top pair in Upsher's absence, was said to be hanging around the What's team bus after the game wearing a trench coat, apparently trying to look intimidating. At his size, he is. The versatile but as of yet underperforming Armistead Swagabond sent a letter to Forget's front office, informing them that he knew some very effective voodoo witch doctors. And in this booming sewing pin economy, you get me? Eat Your Bacon Bits said something in Serbian that nobody dared translate. Kloompf was definitely stirring the pot and drawing many people's ire. And in Game 4, he'd only stir the pot more. But there were things more important and more consequential than pot stirring that transpired that night.
Smirchka, to Kloompf, that suck-up. The Harris, oh my God! Rob Oxygen! What have you done? You killed that man! Everything is happening! Calamity! Sabotage! guilt shrink under my great age stupid name. You're trying to save me now! The codically sent Morrison to his grave.
There are no toothsome females in the crowd. They are all low poly men.
Line shoots, oh my god! His head came off!
Oh, that's just his helmet. His bucket.
No, it's his head!
Sit
It's his
down.
head! He is with God now, amen. Boogerworth fatly slops the puck into the attacking zone. Nicodigny slaps him, the disrespect! Pass across the score! Steady Morrison! Lindquist, the shot is saved by Mongloryland. In front of backhander! Saved by Mongloryland! He gives it away! Nicodigny! Save! Gives it away against Hamilton! Another save by Mongloryland! It's off one by Morrison. He's playing quite steadily. Centers across Odin! He scores! The big rig!
Steady Morrison has 3 points. Too bad he wears such an ugly number as 18. The foulest glyph of them all.
Jack! Tightus Kloompf starting another fight! Oh no! Oh no! It's Jeff McAslan! One of the most feared fighters in the league! The steroids have gone to his head! He thinks he can beat the best, but he won't!
While I'm on the topic, 34 and 52 are equally odious in their visual construction, regardless of the font used.
What in God's name are you talking about? Jeff McAslan is just manhandling Tightus Kloompf! I don't think Kloompf's got a single punch in yet! All right from McAslan! Another low right from McAslan, and Tightus Kloompf's intestines are now distinctly above his lungs. Kloompf to McAvoy, who quietly has 5 assists already in 3 games and change. Grummer sludges it all the way wide. A slapper! He scores! What a shot! South rope Grummer! Boy, they're really excited about that goal. Lindquist, of the Henry variety. Anatoly Warren. Deflection score! The Cold War has turned hot! Anatoly Warren finally scores!
You're right, it was only a matter of time. One of the best players in a bad system. We stand Anatoly in this house.
Well, the HSIBJ blew 2-3-0 leads already in this series. Will they make it 3 blown leads? Here's Honeywell wide. Stops the touches and the net score! Lindquist!
Buffalo Jump is blowing it again. But forget what? They have the heart. They just don't go away.
Head smashed in, have to get something going, or else the only heads that are going to be smashed in are their own. Classic Dixon. I've reached comedic singularity. Block score! South rope Grummer overpowered Raytheon.
Top line for the HSIBJ is as effective as a Carcano rifle in the hands of an ex-Marine.
Period 3. John Fitz, do you think we'll get overtime?
I do not think Forget What will be able to score 2 goals and keep their opponent from scoring within a 20-minute time frame.
Here's Steady Morrison ahead this week. Score! Yep, you're right.
I rest my case.
The head smashed in Buffalo Jump in their God-blessed red, white, and blue are pressuring. Center to Person. He scores from Kusarobian Oxygen. Dave Person continues the third line's reign of terror, and the Forget What in their socialist dark purple, regular purple, blue, gold, silver have wet themselves.
First things first. All of a sudden, Head Smash and Buffalo Jump had a 3-1 series lead. At times, the series looked neck and neck, but now, it was getting away from the what. And a 6-2 final score suddenly made the series look like it was going to be very, very short. But something happened that night that threw everything we knew about this series into the air. Tightus Kloompf didn't report to the media scrum after the game. The team checked the bathrooms in case he was crying. Empty. They checked the team bus. Empty. They checked the local bars. Empty. They called his house. Silent as the grave. All they could find of him was his helmet in one of the service hallways of the arena. After hours of searching, well into the morning, the team called the police. The disappearance of Tightus Kloompf sent no shock waves through the hockey world. The LOHL community by no means banded together in the face of tragedy. There were no message of condolences sent out by celebrities and officials. Gord Gordon, immediately after the LOHL commissioner returned from his sojourn in Cyprus to investigate nanotechnology, demanded an investigation, and with a nod and a wink, suggested that the infracting team be disqualified from the LOHL playoffs. The commissioner agreed. If a player, official, or employee on the HSBJ or any other team was responsible, the team they belonged to would be disqualified. The list of suspects was immense. There were plenty of players on the HSBJ who had expressed a dislike for Kloompf and even threatened him. Maybe the statements were harmless, but now that Kloompf had disappeared, they may not have been as harmless as you'd assume. Gord Gordon hounded the local police to look into every single activity of the HSBJ franchise. But the more they looked, the more they realized that all of their skaters were accounted for. The only exceptions were the scratches, but all 3 of them had been admitted to local hospitals for nacho poisoning, so it's safe to say that they were in the press box all game. The investigation was at a standstill. Somewhere, amongst these teams, in the shadowy fields of Forget, there stood a criminal, and nobody knew them. Until 3 days later, a witness came forth with evidence that turned the whole case on its head.
Thank you for providing admissible evidence. Please state your name for the record. Dixon! And you have evidence to present to the court?
I do indeed. I'm an expert at tapping phones, reading transcriptions, and secretly recording conversations. I'm in the know for everything, and I have proof of who the culprit is.
The What mascot was responsible for Kloomph's disappearance. As the team was headed off the ice after the second period, he intercepted the power forward in a back hallway, presumably while Kloompf was about to shoot up some steroids. The public record of Saskatchewan courts have his confession, where he lays his motives bare. Who did 6 years in the clink for bribery and conspiracy. Tightus Kloompf was never seen in Forget or anywhere in North America again. And in a twist of events, the LOHL commissioner laid down his ruling for how the series would continue. Because of the rule Gord Gordon had pressured him to implement, that the team responsible for his disappearance would be eliminated, and who was an employee of the Forget franchise, the What were disqualified. Gord Gordon's ineptitude, meddling, and just plain stupidity robbed his team of a chance to come back and beat the HSBJ. But there's no way they would have won. Booze Drinkin' Shamilton said after the ruling, "Honestly, I'm glad it's over. We're all mentally drained and physically battered from playing this way all season. We need to find a way to get better. We suck." And Tightus was kind of a stiff anyway. As soon as this statement came out, Gord Gordon resigned from all of his Forget What posts. The HSBJ were in the clear. After a shaky start, they'd been given a mulligan. And in a cosmic way, perhaps it was kind of a reward for playing such a well-constructed system in a league where the norm, and even the expected thing to do, was to go completely insane. People are people, not characters that you can alter the psyche or habits of at a moment's whim. If you treat them right, that gets you further than anything fake or superficial could ever hope to. They had overcome an early obstacle and powered through with pure skill up and down the lineup, built by a hockey mind that was actually there to play hockey. I think the right team is moving on here. Don't you? Tightus, thanks for coming on. I just wanted to set the record straight. Were you on steroids?
Yeah, no, I was absolutely on gear. Yeah.
Okay, bye.